people ask me, like, how are you so fearless? And I'm like, fear is a luxury. If you have time to be afraid, you have luxury.
Welcome to the Immigrant Experience in America, an immigrant human library, where we amplify and humanize the experiences of immigrants in the United States and around the world. Listen in as we add another story to our immigrant human library. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining. For those of you who are joining us from LinkedIn or YouTube, so happy to have you on for another interview of the Immigrant Experience in America podcast. We have today Suhein Beck, or Suhein? Suhein. Oh, like hen, H-E-N, Suhein Beck.
Yes.
To share with us the story, her personal story of being here in the United States, and also the story of her people and some other developments with her personal life and business. Welcome, Suhein.
Thank you, Simone. It is absolutely an honor to be here. I love your podcast and I love hearing all of the immigrant experiences from everyone in the past. I've just been binge listening to all of them, and your own as well.
Oh.
And your book, and you being a diplomat, U.S. diplomat, like it's inspiring.
Oh, thank you so much. I
Yes.
try. You're doing great things as well. So I'm looking forward to learning more about you today.
Mm-hmm.
So let's begin by telling us a bit about Suhein. Who are you, present day, what's going on for you, and introduce you to the audience.
How can I do this in a way that doesn't sound so standard? How about this? I am reconciling the generational traumas and my own personal traumas of being an immigrant, a refugee, an exile from Circassia, and being a Circassian, having been born in a borrowed homeland of Syria, and then being a refugee from there twice over, from the 1967 war to the 1971 revolution, into Germany through the Tolstoy Foundation. From the Tolstoy Foundation, we were in a camp for about a year and a half. Then we're able to be brought over to the United States in late 1971, 1972, during severe chaos in the United States between the impeachment of Nixon, the Vietnam War, the economic crisis, the oil problem. We came to the United States and we landed in New Jersey, in one of the roughest areas in the United States at that time. And we were dealing with extreme racism of anyone that is foreign. And all immigrants were basically vying for territorial rights. You know, it was very tribal. It was very gang mafia level in the 1970s. And so that was another war as well. So we came escaping all of that, and we came facing all of that. So from there, we probably spent another 7 years in direct combat with the gangs during that period of time. So I grew up basically having the gangs bombing our house, bombing our cars, poisoning our dogs, setting us on fire, trying to kidnap us, like myself. Shooting
in New Jersey?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Shooting at us, bullets coming through the windows, Molotov cocktails flying in. It was just another day. And crazy enough, like, my father actually normalized this in such a way, like, I don't know, have you ever seen the musical West Side Story with Natalie Wood?
I haven't personally seen it myself.
Okay. So that's a musical, and it's a beautiful musical. It's kind of like a Romeo and Juliet, modern day. So the two opposite families that don't get along, one is an immigrant from Puerto Rico,
Okay.
and one is American. So the young man and the young woman fall in love, and then their family factions basically are at war with each other on the streets. But it's a musical. So they're singing and dancing, and it's like, welcome to America, you know?
Right. Okay.
So when this was happening to us, the way that my father was able to protect us or psychologically buffer us from this being traumatic was, this is America, tick, 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 tick. So we would see that musical, and he's like, see, that's the way it is. Simone, that was in the 70s. I completely normalized that as that is the immigrant experience. That is the way it is in America for everybody, because that was what I was taught. I lived it. And I mean, if I tell you the details, and I'll get back to the details, I did not know this was not normal until just a few years ago. So this is what happened. The new wave of Syrian refugees came in about 11 years ago when the war started in Syria, the civil war. After the Arab Spring, the Syrian war came, and then there were the Syrian refugees that came in. So the Syrian community, the Arab community here in Orange County, California, like in Southern California, they called me up and they were like, hey, you can speak to them and motivate them and, just kind of help them assimilate. I'm like, I'm all about it. So it was on a tennis court, like literally these immigrant families just landed. They just got their apartment. There was a lot of like help from the government and nonprofit organizations and NGOs that were helping them get their furniture, get their clothing, get, English classes, assimilation classes, all of that. And I was blown away. And I was like, wow, they really have great opportunities. But I was sensing in some of the families that there was resentment, like, why are we not getting more? Why is this, it's not enough to, sustain us, blah, blah, blah. And that blew my mind. Because when we arrived in the 70s, there was 0.0000% of anything for anyone, plus huge amount of hatred and war and, non-welcome. With the economic conditions being exponentially worse. Like to get a tank of gas filled, you have to wait in line 5, 6, 7 hours. So,
which America are you talking about? 5, 6, 7 hours? I mean, that's wow. I'm
the
just
1970s,
like,
there was
this is on the East Coast in New Jersey.
It was in the United States because that was the oil embargo of the 1970s. So I'm on the tennis court facing these immigrant families, explaining to them what an amazing opportunity they have. And this is incredible. And you're going to be able to work hard and this and that. And I'm sensing resistance from them. And then I started, for the first time in my entire existence, I started talking about what happened in New Jersey to us, to my family, and saying, you guys have this good. Don't blow it, because we didn't have this, and this is what we were dealing with. We were in a war zone of gang mafia territory, hating on us on a wretched, volatile level. And, to the point where the police wouldn't even respond to our calls because the police were afraid of them.
Wow.
And if they did respond, like, for example, like one night they tried to set us on fire and they poured gasoline all the way around after they poisoned our dog and trying to set us on fire. They actually put there were these boulders on the street, on the side of the street. They moved the boulders onto the street on Valley Road, which is like one way in and one way out, so that the fire department would not be able to come and save us. So when you say the immigrant experience, honey, Bring it. Let me just unload.
Wow. So,
So
so
I am
before we go any deeper into the story, I don't want to cut it because I think you're onto a flow here, but I'm putting myself in the seat of the audience, both in the US and internationally, who are wondering, okay, so who is a Circassian, one? And then the second is, like, why were these people so against you? Who are these gangs in New
okay.
Jersey? And like, why were they particularly so aggressive towards your people? Like,
Okay.
give us the story of the
Oh,
Circassians and how we got there.
let me take 2 steps forward and then I'll go back. Okay. So I'm on the tennis court. I start talking about these situations in New Jersey of what happened. My friends who we've worked on nonprofit organizations, we've worked on building a private school together, you know, they've known me for 20 years. They were listening to me on the tennis court talking to the Syrian refugees and they're like, Suhein, who are you? I thought I knew you. I don't know you. And I'm like, well, well, didn't that happen to you? And they're like, no. And I'm like, wait, what about you? And what about, in like, you came, what year did you come? And what year did you come? And then I started comparing notes and I was like, wait, what? Why were we the lucky ones? And what the hell happened? So I swear to you, Simone, in front of everyone here and anyone from that moment on the tennis court, Maya, Asha, Duri, Atasi, like I can tell you their names. I'll tag them when this video comes out. I blame everything on them. Everything that has happened to me since that tennis court moment, and I have pictures of it, was because of them, because they awakened the beast inside of me. Then I had to, as I like to answer your question, who was Suhein? Suhein is in the moment of reconciliation, of trying to reconcile what the hell happened? Who, what, where, and why was my immigrant experience so beyond, like it was a movie in of itself. It was like the West Side Story and Godfather combined, you know? So to put everything into perspective, like, you know, so I answered your first question, and that was, who is Suhein Beck? She is a woman, a human being, a broken soul who's trying to reconcile the generational trauma of being a Circassian, and I'll get to that, of being a Syrian refugee, and of becoming an immigrant in the United States in the 70s and 80s. So there's a lot to unpack there.
Yes.
So going back step by step. Who is a Circassian? A Circassian is someone that comes from the Caucasus Mountains in what is now southern Russia. We are not Russian. I say that with gritted teeth. We are the indigenous people that inhabited the Caucasus Mountains for over 7,000 years. I say that with extreme clarity. We have archaeological, anthropological, DNA evidence, linguistic evidence, all the way through. Okay? Proving that. So there's not a doubt by any academic, scholar, historian. Okay? So we have been the center point of Eurasia, because this is at the point where it's south of Russia, north of Turkey, just east of Greece, and west of the Caspian Sea in Asia. So these mountains were our only friends, and they helped us ward off the invasions of Genghis Khan. The Ottoman Empire going up, the Russian Empire coming down, and Europe trying to go east. No one could penetrate these mountains. So to start putting demarcations on the points of history, 2,500 years ago or so, the Greeks came up the Black Sea onto the ports, which is now modern-day Sukhumi and Abkhazia, where the Winter Olympics were 15 years ago. Sochi, Sukhumi, Abkhazia, those were our lands. That is where the first and modern genocide occurred on European soil in modern times. Over 1 million Circassians were killed. Our ancestors were destroyed there, over 1 million. So that land where the Greeks came, they were mesmerized at what they saw. They saw men and women on horses fighting courageously and valiantly. Now, who were those women? Those were the Amazons. That later became the mythology of the Amazons, the Wonder Woman series, the women with the golden belt with superpowers. They were not superpowers. What it was that we were trained at very young ages to be on horses. When you take a young girl and a young boy, put them on a horse at 3 years old, teach them how to throw arrows, the physical strength is equalized. So when the Greeks and the Spartans came and saw these mesmerizing, beautiful, exotic women fighting in the forests, they discovered what they'd never seen before: equality among men and women. Fighting, counseling on war. The first concept of democracy actually happened there, not in Greece and Athens. In fact, when they saw this, they were mortified and wanted to keep that away from their women in Greece, should their women be enlightened to what citizenry actually is. So that in of itself, so that's where the propaganda came about, that, they are savage beasts. They are the ones that wore pants. Yeah, we're an equestrian nation. While they were still in their togas and thobes, we were wearing pants because of chafing, So, and we were calling each other Maza, si Maza, because that is the most common Circassian female name till today. And it means moon, my moon, si Maza, my moon, Maza. So when we were calling each other Maza, Maza, they were like, oh, the lady of the forest, Maza, Maza. And that's where the word came from. It was from the common Circassian name. So that was the timeline of the Greeks. And they created this propaganda about us and whatnot, that it was the women and whatever. Yeah, well, there were periods of time where the population of men decreased and it was all hands on deck. So we showed up for battle. It wasn't that we were a lesbian nation and one-breasted women that would chop off a breast in order to throw an arrow. Like all of these other things, and like they were, the Wonder Woman series and all of that. That was just the sexual exploitations of the Greeks trying to, command history, because they were the first to write it. Herodotus and, all of that. So all of the mythology of Prometheus, that was on our land. The giver of fire. He was chained to the mountain. He was chained to Mount Elbrus, the highest mountain in Europe. It's on our land. But you've never heard of it because Russia, who later came, was very ashamed of the fact that this small indigenous nation, tribes of 12, fought Russia for 101 years. And the Russian Empire could not conquer this small little nation. From 1763 to 1864, to be exact, May 21st, 1864, was our final exile, where only about 500,000 remained in our homeland. The rest of us were killed or exiled out. So Russia came to an agreement with the Ottoman Empire and saying, hey, most of them are Muslim, take them. So we were scattered through Europe, Bulgaria, and West in Europe, and then into the Middle East, primarily in Turkey. So my grandfather was in Bulgaria, and literally he was the generation of the exile. And of the ones that were in Bulgaria, and then Greece and Turkey. He studied medicine in Turkey and thereafter ended up in Syria. So from that period of time, he built up a medical clinic in the Golan Heights, which is the borderline between Syria and Israel, which it kills me to say this right now, but now that Golan Heights is now being renamed as Trump Heights, which is the ultimate Anyway,
Is
so
it legally, or is just the proposal that's been put out there?
there's signage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm
and
not.
and
I'm
we
not.
have land there. We own land. We have, my grandfather had a hospital clinic there, and yada yada. Anyway, so it wasn't by chance that Syria put Circassians, who is a warrior nation. We are warriors in our DNA through and through. We have not, done anything else in history that was extraordinary, like building, pyramids or anything else. Like, we were warriors. It was always war. So you take a warrior nation, and what do you do with them? You put them in the most strategic place where that land is going to be either invaded or, whatnot. So they put us in the Golan Heights, the borderline buffer zone between Syria and Israel. We didn't have a clue. 1967 happened, 6-day war. Who were the first ones to go? Circassians. In fact, I lost an uncle in that one, my mother's brother. Beautiful, handsome, like gorgeous young man. First day on battle. So 1967 happened, and thereafter we were all basically refugees into the city of Damascus, where that only lasted for about a year or two before the rumblings of a revolution came about, that this regime, the Ba'ath regime that just got kicked out like 2 months ago, started coming in with a military coup. My father, who was an attorney, writer, worked in the Office of Government Information, basically knew that he would be one of the first ones deleted. So we had to escape on a midnight train from Syria through Turkey, from Turkey into Germany. So that was another refugee experience. From Germany, not knowing whether we were going to be there or not, the Tolstoy Foundation had our destiny in their hands. We were allowed access to come to the United States legally. We came to the United States. We landed in New Jersey. There was a larger community of Circassians there. Most of them were in Passaic County, Patterson, Hackensack. So that area was rife with immigrants.
Okay.
And
And so
each of
before you go any further, any deeper, so I can hear my guests wondering why, what geopolitical or whatever reason was it that Russia, Ottoman Empire wanted that region that you guys occupied, the mountains? Like, what was so
the
strategic about
richest
having that?
the richest of minerals. The Bronze Age was originally started from that region. So the best weaponry, the best metals could be derived from that area. So we are known for our weaponry. A Circassian dagger is the ultimate. The oil in the Caspian Sea. Alfred Nobel started the Nobel Foundation from his finance of the dynasty from the oil from the Caspian Sea. George Bush later started talking about the pipeline of the Caspian Sea. So it's oil rich, mineral rich, very fertile. So remember, all of Russia is, wasteland of ice. But then you have the Caucasus Mountains that you can, have, agriculture, sheep and, just everything from peaches to walnuts. And the walnut trees, for example, created the best and longest barrel for rifles, which Alfred Nobel also capitalized and exploited. And ironically, harvested the walnut trees in order to create the weaponry that was sold to the Russians to come back and kill us with. Gotta love the irony, right? So with that, okay, also it's a perfect border, it's beautiful ski resorts. It's, you've got the Black Sea, which has access all the way into Europe and down. The Caspian Sea, amazing fish, amazing, it's just very, very rich in resources. So forestry, greens, everything. So it's strategic as well, militarily.
Okay. No, I get
So,
that. I get
yeah.
that. Okay. And so
And
now I'm wondering like what happened to the 500,000 people that you said were left
Ah,
in
nice.
country.
Good question. So for the
Yeah.
remaining that stayed there, so from 1864 to the turn of the century, so until 1917, that's when the communist revolution occurred, the Bolshevik communist revolution. So that was another revolution where they were just like outcast. But then, wait, there's more. Stalin shows up in the 1940s and does another genocide again to really finish us off. And so then that diminished. And so there was like a 12 to 15-year exile where then like overnight, the military showed up with wagons, started shooting entire villages, and would take people from the villages, ship them on these containers, on trains, literally urinating on themselves throughout the whole voyage into Siberia, Kazakhstan, and whatnot. So literally burning villages on the spot overnight. All of this has been virtually erased from history books. However, truth has a beautiful way of coming through. So we actually found the archives and proof of all the military pre, during, and post plans because they forgot them in a particular location and now we have the access. So that's why I'm saying like we actually now have absolute, undeniable, irrefutable proof of all of the crimes that were committed against us. And that is why I am really, really grateful for this experience with you to share all of this, because this is all new information, like less than 10 years old. So, and now we have archaeological evidence that has the benefit of technology and the DNA to prove who we are in relation to the bones of the ancestors of the Amazon women that were found in 1,000 grave sites that show the women buried with their horses, with their weapons, in positions as if they're riding their horse into the heaven.
Wow.
We have evidence of it. I have the pictures and the books, and Dr. Janine Davis Kimball was an archaeologist from America that actually had the technology that went back and uncovered all of this. So now there is no denying. So whatever the Greeks tried to fake the world out with, and then Hollywood did the exploitation of the, Wonder Woman series, and then, the Russians came along and, they did what they did. It was incredible. Oh, Simone, one more thing. Just last year, so this is 2024, so it's 2025 right now, 2024 and 2023, the Italian archives just released that Leonardo da Vinci's mother was Circassian. So she was of noble lineage and she was kidnapped. And that was happening all the time because of the beauty of Circassian women. They were well known for it. They're Euro-Asian. They were kidnapped, sold in the slave market. Leonardo da Vinci's father liberated her from the slave market, from the Istanbul market, brought her to Italy. And there were so many slaves purchased at that time that there was actually an area called Adiga River, which is another word for Circassian is Adiga. So there is a river, Adiga river in Italy, and it's kind of like close to Verona. And that is where a lot of Circassians were there. And they were brought there because they were so good at embroidery and textiles. And the Silk Road went through and ended with us, but then it was continued on. And our workmanship on fabrics and textiles is what basically sparked the robes and the fashion of the Renaissance era. So Leonardo da Vinci's mother is Circassian. So like I joke about it right now and I'm like, Leonardo's my cousin.
It's very cool. Very cool to be unraveling all of this history and to find proof of
Yes, it's
your
validating. Like we were
family and your
invisible for
people.
so long. Like I grew up and it was so shameful for me to say I'm Caucasian because that word has been hijacked and appropriated so wrongly. So the word Caucasian, to most Americans, they think it means white. It does not mean white. a lot of us actual Caucasians that come from the Caucasus Mountains that are indigenous to the land, we are Caucasian. We are not all white. So that concept was stolen right around the time of the Civil War in the United States, which is exactly the same time that we were fighting our war with Russia. And America was fascinated at the time with what was happening. And they were like, wow, who are these incredibly brave warriors that are fighting off Russia? And so they were beautifying our character, our courage, our valiance, but the exoticism of the women. So then they equated beauty with Caucasian, not the whiteness, with the character. And they hijacked that word, stole our identity away from it, and then redefined it as white. Dr. Elizabeth Sarah Lewis is an amazing soul. She's a Harvard professor. She's African American. And she just wrote a book called The Unseen Truth. And the premise of that book is about race relations in America and how America hijacked that word Caucasian from us and exploited it for their own usage. Even Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus brought Circassian women in to showcase them in cages. Oh, yeah. So,
Oh my.
yeah. So again, Suhein is just someone trying to reconcile the past and the present and what has been erased and taken away. And now that thanks to these handful of scholars like Dr. John Colarusso and Dr. Adrienne Mayer, Dr. Janine Davis Kimball, these are the scholars that resuscitated us from the grave and validated our existence. Previously to that, I did not exist. So when I go on stage, appearing, doing speaking and whatever, like I start a lot of this with, I am a ghost from an ancient civilization you've never heard of. And that captures their attention. And then I basically tell them, I promise you, I will not commit suicide. So if I randomly fall off a hotel balcony, I assure you, it was not me.
Mm.
If I'm randomly poisoned, I assure you, I promise you, that was not me. That's my story.
Wow. And you're sticking to it, I'm sure. Now that you've been able to uncover so much and of your roots and heritage. So tell me then, you go through Germany and then later arrive in the US as immigrants. What, take us through, like, what are these gangs that are in New Jersey, and why are they after your family? Like, give it, other people you said did not have that experience. So why were they after your people in particular? Who were they?
It was economics more than anything. So when we landed, we saved up enough money through working factories. And when I say we, my parents and my two brothers that were much older, they saved up enough money in order to purchase a restaurant with a house on top. In the East Coast, that's very common. So we had a, coffee shop restaurant on 117 Valley Road, Clifton, New Jersey, 07013. So if anybody wants to look it up, that is the history. It was called Village Fountain. So we purchased that. Thought, yay, we're good, So family up above, restaurant below, we can, stay cohesive as a family working that and whatever. And my dad worked as a limousine driver back and forth in New Jersey to New York and all that. We had a newspaper route. Like, we had multiple businesses all at the same time. Typical 24/7 kind of a, family operation.
That immigrant mentality, right?
Right, right, right. So they started off as just punksters. Like, they were not sophisticated to the level of actual mafia, but they were vicious enough to be more than just gangs. So what happened was, the economy was bad. So we were the ones that, were working hard. We obviously had money in our hands because the restaurant was active. So basically, these little punksters decided that they wanted protection tax money. So it was just like The Godfather, that pay us a tax, a percentage of your income, so that we don't kill you.
Oh,
And my father, having been 100% pure Circassian, is like, excuse me, you little punk? With what we've endured, you think you're going to threaten me and scare me? So the challenge began. So we were armed as children. I was taught at a very young age how to hold a knife. And a knife, again, like, you don't hold a knife like this. You hold a knife like this, because it's harder to flip out. So it was all part of my psychology of no fear. And the way, and people ask me, like, how are you so fearless? And I'm like, fear is a luxury. If you have time to be afraid, you have luxury. We don't have luxury. So, okay. So one day it was night. My dad is like, Suhein, go downstairs, get me some ice cream. The restaurant was closed. And downstairs is where they would penetrate in through the windows or the doors or, whatever. So going downstairs into the restaurant at any given time, somebody could just be there and, like, take you. So I was, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years old. And he basically would, and I was just waiting, trying to delay, maybe he'll forget. And then he realized I was afraid. He's like, no, come here. We go into the kitchen. He grabs a knife, shows me how to hold it, basically shows me, take advantage of your size. You're smaller. This is where you go. This is how you do it. This is where, and prepare. So the process of preparation leaves you no option of the luxury of fear. And with that, it was always about preparation. They're going to come after us. That's the worst case scenario. I know that. It's just a matter of time. Okay. I know they're coming after us. It's proven every single day. And this is my norm. So I'm going to outsmart them. And I'm going to show them what hell is like. Because I'm going to hurt them badly.
wow.
So this is what I'm talking about, is like, I did not know. This is not normal until the tennis court a few years ago, when the Syrian refugee wave came in, and then my friends overheard me talking to them. And I was saying, you guys have it so easy. This is what we did. And da-da-da-da-da. And then all of my friends were like, wait, you look like a princess. You're so polished and you're so professional. Are you carrying a gun right now? And, like, at any given time, I have weapons with me anywhere and everywhere. Wait, hold on a second.
Oh my gosh. I hope you're not about to share anything on our live here because, other people are watching.
So this is my Bagolini. This is my purse, my
Oh, I
everyday
have a
purse.
Bagolini. I have a
Okay.
Bagolini.
So you see here, here's my business card.
Right. Okay.
I'm ready.
And you're still in New Jersey. You still live in
No,
New
no, I'm
Jersey.
in Southern California.
Okay. And you still feel that level of threat in your daily
You know,
goings,
I
or
love
it's just
I
how you are
I
mentally,
love
like
this
how you feel?
question. I did another podcast recently, and the gentleman asked me, "Did you feel safe?" I was traveling in Egypt recently, and he says, "Did you feel safe?" And I said, and it just opened it up for me. And I had never thought about it, but I never feel safe. I have
Mm.
never known that word. I don't know, because it took me a while to answer, and I really tried to check off my list of everywhere I've lived. And I can honestly say I have never known what that word meant. I've never known what it feels like to have roots. And it goes back to the generational trauma that when you take a people that have inhabited a land for 7,000 years, where our language is associated with the trees, with that specific air, our immune systems are related to the pollen of that land, and you exile them, it's an amputation of your soul. And so no land has ever felt home. I've never felt safe. And it's hard, like, for example, I was in a beautiful relationship with a man who wanted to make me feel safe. That's biologically in them. And he kept getting frustrated with me, asking me, "Do you feel safe now?" I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Do you feel like this is home now?" And I'm like, "No." And he couldn't do anything to make me feel safe. And that hurt him.
What does that look like for you on like a regular day when you say you don't feel safe, like in your
It's,
body? Can you give us a sense for how that shows up for you?
yes, it is extreme insomnia.
Mm.
And it's the constant fear of an earthquake. It's the constant fear of thinking to myself, are all my electronics protected? Are all my photo albums uploaded? So that if I have to start from ground zero again, I can hit the ground running from any place, any country, anywhere, anyhow. I always have an escape plan. So I walk into an office and I will never sit where the window is behind me, because I was taught that bullets will come in and hit you. So I'm always facing, in a restaurant, in an office, anywhere I go, I'm always facing the door, the exit. I scan. I'm in constant warrior mode wherever I go.
I wonder, do you feel like there are people after you, or based on the
No,
generational trauma, you just kind of at any time things could
no.
change and you would have to move
I
on?
don't have a sense of paranoia of people or anything. In fact, like, I am probably the most naive. I know, despite all of that, I still am very people loving and naive. I'm okay with people deceiving me.
As am I.
Yeah, I like the gentleness of humanity. I see it.
Hmm.
I'm not shadowed by ugly. I really have been gifted with either faith or humanity that, I see beauty. So I don't live in a state of paranoia. I live in a state of preparation where I'm constantly prepared. it's ingrained in me, and like, start over, to start
Right.
over all over again.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing. You know, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Oh, I heard somebody say something that's escaping me. I can't really find exact words, but she was basically saying, like, um, love, but, don't love to the point where you completely lose yourself and um, completely unguarded, I guess. It's not fully explaining how she put it, but I get what you're saying. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to be vigilant, to be naive, but you're vigilant about your surroundings and where you
Right.
are and be able to protect yourself. It's important as a woman. And and as it's an interesting time in our country right now, and so I can imagine a lot of people may be having feelings like that,
Mhm.
so who knows? Um,
I mean, I say this all the time, that at any given moment, anywhere, whether I'm in Southern California or in Turkey or, in Japan, an earthquake can happen, a nuclear accident, a natural disaster. And within 12 seconds, any one of us could be refugees. So once you are a refugee, and I joke about this all the time, and I say, oh, it's just another Wednesday. Like, we've been refugees. And like, my parents went back to Syria, and then the war started. Like, so now in 1.5 generations, we've been refugees, exiles, immigrants 8 times in 1.5 generations.
wow.
So it's another Wednesday. What do you call it? Hump day? Like, I got to get over the hump. Okay, all over again. Let's start over.
Yeah. Yes, what's the name of your a native tongue for your Circassian people?
Circassian.
Okay, that's the name.
Circassian.
Okay.
Yeah. So we
Is
speak
it similar to
Circassian,
anything
Adiga,
we know?
Adiga.
Is it similar to anything we know, like
No, because it was one of the original Proto-Indo-European languages. So like, it's that old, but it's, been transferred down so much, and it's one of the most complicated languages on the planet, and it's listed on the endangered species UNESCO languages. And we are working very hard to resuscitate it. And of course, Russia outlawed the usage of the language for the remaining 500,000 that did stay in Kafkasia and Circassia. And for those of us that left, we were in borrowed homelands that wanted us to assimilate into Arabic and into Turkish and whatnot. So they also shut down any private schools that were set up for immigrants and whatever. So we have been fighting to resuscitate our language. And thanks to COVID and, the online revolution, now the apps and the curriculums are flourishing. And the new generation of Circassians have really done a great job of bringing it back, and like, we're dealing with our own renaissance. And um it's exciting to see that the new generation is bringing it back, because my generation, it was completely erased purposely by either our homeland nation or our borrowed homelands, where they wanted us to assimilate and whatever, which is typical. The melting pot overcomes anyway. But now there's the resurgence. And now I think we are subscribing to what's called, this one scholar from Denmark has called it the new land of Circassia, the internet Circassia. So we are about 7 to 8 million Circassians around the world, and we are coming together beautifully by reconnecting and comparing notes to our diaspora experiences of being separated from each other, not knowing, from one country to another. Like, there were so many years where the Circassians in Syria could not connect with the Circassians in Turkey, because Syria and Turkey had negative relations. And none of us could connect with those that were left in the homeland. And the ones in the homeland didn't know what happened to us, because they were completely isolated. So they didn't even know we existed. And my family was one of the first ones to go back to Russia, to our homeland of Circassia, in 1988, right after communists went down, Gorbachev opened up the doors. My family was one of the first ones to get back in there to, scope everything out. And in our village, there was a village named after my father's family, the Pshahalakwai. They heard this family from America had come, and they were like, oh, someone from the Pshahalakwai, because we have noble lineage. And they're like, they drove so far to meet us. And when we did meet with them, it was the most heart-wrenching meeting. And like, I know this sounds funny, but this was before DNA testing. This was before genetics. We were stripping down to compare body parts. Like feet. And like just to compare and like we have really ugly feet. And they were like, yep, we're definitely related because nobody could have, this ugly feet.
Wow.
Just
My
even
goodness. I'm
discovering that we
wondering,
existed.
right. I'm wondering how many languages you speak, how many, what was the language that stayed with you leaving, being exiled, being in Syria, Germany, now the US? Like, how many languages do you speak, and which one basically did you use to communicate with other people?
So my native was Circassian, and then Arabic, and then German. I lost the German, then brought in English. When my brothers and I were in New Jersey, because of the combination of the multiple languages and the fear of using the languages and the anxiety from being attacked on a daily basis, because there was not much difference between us. They were white, we were white. So what was the difference between us? It's the language. So that's when it caused speech handicaps for all two of us mostly. Well, three of us, yes. Because my older brother till today has a severe stuttering problem.
Wow.
My second brother had a silence problem. For me, I had stuttering and lisping and severe anxiety where I did not speak to another child my entire childhood. So at school number 5, from 1973-ish to 1979, I challenge any child to say, I remember Suhein and I spoke to her. I did not speak to another child. With the exception of my cousins that were in Patterson or Passaic County or whatever, I would go to their house. I was quiet, but I would respond to them. Or if I went back to Syria and I visited my cousin, Gulnar, I would speak to her. But during my childhood, until I was 10, 11 years old, until we moved to California, I did not speak to another child, ever. I would respond to adults that I felt safe with adults. I didn't feel safe, customers, like specific customers that would come into the coffee shop and they would talk to me, elders. I would have very minimal conversations with them. And they felt pity for me, and they like took me under their wings. And so like I learned about Americans through them and their beauty. And so there was always a shining light in the darkness. There was always a shining light for me.
Right.
So, yeah. And I was lucky because I was able to get speech therapy at school number 5. So I was a pull-out student, and they would take me into the basement and they would play random games with me, like Chutes and Ladders. And like, that's all I remember is that I was pulled out to do these weird exercises to start reconditioning my ears from so I had like multiple speech disabilities, and the severe anxiety. And now you can't shut me up.
The healing has been taking root. I'm wondering, like, what other experiences did you and your family have with all of the trauma, all of being exiled, and the stories that were shared, being separated from your land and your people? Like, what was the experience like for you guys? Like, what was it like for your parents and your grandfather was with you or something? Did I miss that?
My grandfather was in Syria, and he passed away there before we had left. So my grandparents stayed in Syria. So it was just my direct family that was able to escape. And it was because, we had to. My father suffered the most because he was an intellectual in Syria. And he had his intellectual circles as a writer and whatnot. Coming to America, working in very degrading positions of very dirty factories and, being a chauffeur and very degrading. And yet he carried himself with the utmost of dignity. That, it's an honest day's work. And, he said it over and over again. I am not the son of Dr. Muhammad Ali Bshahaluk. I am the child of today. And that's what America does. It's the great equalizer. Like back in the day in Circassia, like if you take a girl and a boy, put them on a horse, that was the equalizer of strength and power and valiance. Here in America, the equalizer is, what did you accomplish today? It's not what you did yesterday. It's not who you are. It's not who your lineage is. What did you accomplish today? That's it. So with that, the suffering that he endured of not feeding that intellectualism, of not being able to write, ate at him. And so here he was, this great writer, not able to write all these incredible experiences of discovering America. And America has daily heroes. Like anyone you meet on the street in America, there are heroes. And he said when he used to read Ernest Hemingway or Tennessee Williams or whatever, like these heroes were so genuine. And he's like, if I go to America, am I going to really meet those people? And he did, because he looked for them. And I think that's where I get my, I see good. Because he saw good. Like my dad would leave bags of pistachios and, nuts and things like that for the postman in the mailbox. So he would make the connections, and that person would reach out, and there would be this connection and whatever. And so despite languages and whatever, like that humanity of connection, despite the languages, despite everything, we were able to connect. And so I was able to get that from him. And I think that's what helped me bridge beyond the crevice of differences, of racism, of hatred. Leaving a bag of pistachios for someone goes a long way. Like one time I was in a park in Lake Forest, California, and the landscapers were there. And I just thought of something, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to the AMPM market. I bought a bunch of little bags, and I snuck up onto their little golf cart. And I left them bags of pistachios on their little golf carts. And I just disappeared. And it was such a fun, cute little, act of kindness that I gained such wonder. And forgive me for even talking about it, because you're not supposed to talk about, if you do something good, you're not supposed to, say it. Like in Arabic, we say the right hand is not supposed to know what the left hand is doing. So if you're giving, you're not supposed to talk about it, but it's just an example of, sweetness that you can bring despite all the ugliness,
Right. So I'm curious, having gone through just so much trauma, being exiled, constantly fighting, trying to stay alive. What has it been like being in the United States where you are considered to be in the dominant group? Complexion here, you
I
have all
work it. I exploit
the
it.
You
Oh,
tell me, what has that experience been like for you once you came over? Seems like you were pretty young, 11 in California. What has that been like for you growing up and kind of assimilating? And have you even assimilated? I don't know. You tell me.
whenever possible, I have exploited my whiteness, my blonde, my blue-eyed, whenever possible. And it is currency. I
Mhm.
am ashamed to say how powerful that currency is. I have used it at every possible opportunity. Because the minute that they see my name and ask what religion I am, I lose that currency. So it's 2 steps forward, 4 steps back. So however much I can get in the door with this, in order to bridge them, have them trust me, have them, like, I'm one of you, until they discover that I'm not, it's too late.
That is so weird to me because I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, like, what do you mean I'm one of them? To the rest of us, you are one of, whether people want to say European American or
Not in a job
Caucasian,
interview,
as you just
not
gave us the history. Like, what do you mean? Until they discover you're not one of them. There's so many different ethnicities, nationalities that's within that whole group of WHITE that people are using. You even have people from the Indian continent claiming to be white. You have people from Latin America now claiming to be white. It's so confusing for the rest of us, and for me particularly, who wasn't raised with this whole idea of race.
exactly
Um,
1 year ago. Exactly 1 year ago.
um,
Simone,
Go ahead.
exactly 1 year ago, I was working in property management. I went back to my first career in corporate. I was working in an office in Corona, and everybody was referring to me as Sue, Sue, Sue. My name tag clearly says Suhein. And a vendor who was working on the roofs at this apartment complex overheard me speaking in Spanish to another vendor. And he looked at me and rudely interrupted me. And he said, "Why are you speaking in Spanish?" And I looked at him and I said, "Well, he doesn't speak Arabic. He doesn't speak Turkish. He doesn't speak Circassian. He doesn't speak French. So I'm going to speak Spanish with him." And he said, "Why do you know those other languages? Are you Turkish? My girlfriend would hate you." And I was like, "Excuse me? What did you say? Did you use the word hate?" Because first of all, you can't hate me. I'm not hateable. I'm obnoxious, but I'm not hateable. So why would she hate? Why would
Okay, explain. What do you mean you're not hateable? Help me with the perspective.
on what grounds can I be hateable? I'm a good person. I'm loving. I'm kind. I'm gentle. I cook amazing food. I would love to welcome you into my home.
Right, okay, but they don't
I
know you, of course. They don't know you personally,
Yes,
so.
but my personality was evident in my work situation where I was very respected and loved and, and whatever. And so like I was the go-to. And so how could I be hateable when I offer so much? Okay.
Okay.
And so I was like, why would she hate me? And he said, because she's Armenian. And I was like, oh, wait, no, hold on. First of all, I'm not Turkish. Zero. But even if I were, she still couldn't hate me because I'm not hateable. Second, I am Circassian. Circassians are from the North Caucasus. Armenians are from the South Caucasus. So technically, we're cultural cousins. I'm still trying to be lighthearted with this person. And yet, he was adamant about throwing the daggers at me. I revert back into the kindness mode. And I was like, well, I invite you and her to dinner. And I'm not going to cook kebabs. I'm going to be a little more exotic. He's like, no, that's not necessary.
What?
Yeah, it was full on. And previous to that, he was flirting with me. But just the fact that I was speaking other languages, Spanish in California, in Southern California. He was saying, we're in America now.
He was flirting with you, and now he's talking about having a girlfriend, hating you. What in the world is what's going on?
This went on for a few days. I wrote him up, sent the letter to the regional property manager, yada, 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 incident report, yada, yada. Okay. The next day, there was constant, like, he would walk in and I'd be on the phone. And he was like, oh, I see she's talking in English today. I would let it go. Until about the fourth day. On the fourth day, I'm sitting at my desk. He's sitting in front of me. I'm communicating with residents that I need to get permission to enter, to call them to ask if we can enter in order to fix the problem with the roof. He sees my name tag for the first time. He goes, what the hell is that? What is that? And I'm like, what? This? That's my name. He goes, what? I thought you were Sue. And I said, no, it's Suhein. He goes, where were you born? And I said, I was born in Damascus, the oldest city of civilization. No, you weren't. You were not. And I said, so you're telling me I was not born in Syria? He gets up and towers over me. He said, so you're Muslim? And I said, yes, I am. He goes, so you want to slit my throat because I'm an infidel? I read the Quran. That's what it says. It says that you are here to kill us. And I'm like, if I am, you need to get in line because there's a lot of people ahead of you.
Wow. Okay.
Wow. So I had to get him escorted off the property because not just for me. And I specifically said, you need to leave the property. You are now in violation of fair housing laws. You cannot represent us. If any of our other employees heard you, they speak Spanish, they are Hispanic, they would be offended. What if one of our residents heard you? This is not acceptable. It wasn't even about me. Like, I'm sitting here reverting to company policy, procedures, fair housing. This is not okay. Get the hell off of the property.
Why was he so personally coming at you? Because you didn't accept his advances, and because he just seemed like he was so offended and was trying to harm you.
He was offended that I was not Sue. He felt deceived. He thought I was American, Kentucky Fried Chicken American. He thought I was that. And when I wasn't, I represented something that he didn't want to see. He doesn't want to see a white, blonde, blue-eyed Muslim woman that speaks multiple languages on American soil, because that's a threat. That goes to the concept of they're not creating enough of their population, and so we are here to conquer and divide and do whatever we are here to institute Sharia law. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So now I represent the dark side of the other world. And he couldn't control that concept that, Muslims are not all Arabs. And, I'm a terrorist. I'm like, hell yeah, give me the chocolate. Nobody gets hurt. I'll pull a jihadi Jane on you.
Right. So in keeping with thinking of my little one who's upstairs waiting on me because she doesn't like when I do these interviews while she's home.
Oh.
And respect for your time and our folks watching, tell us what present day life is like for you? What do you do? I know you were starting up a business and a new venture. Tell us more about that, and where you are in your journey.
I did start my own business called Ilage, and that is the skincare product that my grandfather created after he served in the Ottoman Empire army. And it basically is a skincare product to help with wounds, problem skin, dry skin, scars, and whatnot. And so that I was able to launch, and the website is Ilage Naturally, ELAJ Naturally. Ilage means healing in 7 languages. So it's a healing naturally.com. Ilage Naturally. So that's fine and great. It's selling online. Since all of this has happened in the last 10 years, I have found my voice. And thanks to these scholars, Dr. Lars von Hansen, and the scholars that I mentioned earlier, the books that are now alive and kicking, becoming visible has validated my existence and my people's existence. And so I kind of represent that yearning of being visible, of finally existing where we didn't previously, and reclaiming our memory and reclaiming our history, that we were a great nation. We were noble. We have a very high code of honor. Unlike those that did colonize us, they don't have a code of honor when it comes to war or, civility, like we did. And that's what we're known for. So I am really enjoying this journey of bringing that to the surface. And so now I've launched a speaking campaign for leaders and organizations and corporate and anyone that wants to hear about code of honor in leadership, organizational structures. And so bringing that. So I'm basically tapping into the ancient wisdom of the Circassians and what helped us survive for so long. And of course, I'm telling them the stories of the dagger and, and how to handle fear and courage and, whatnot, from someone who it's in our DNA. Like it was, bred into us as warriors. And then, of course, the nobility of dignity and maintaining self-respect and whatnot, which as you know, in the corporate world in America has not been there, So whether it's manufacturing, whether it is entrepreneurship, if I can introduce the concept of a code of honor so that leaders and corporations are not operating at a baseline level of this is code of ethics. That's your bare minimum. And then they're operating at a CYA standard, cover your ass. No, because there's always going to be an error margin plus or minus a few points. So if you're operating at that bare level minimum, there are going to be days when your manufacturing is not going to be at par on standard. You're going to go below. And at that point, are you going to do a recall? Are you going to advertise that your product is not at the standard of the FDA? Your cosmetics are breeding fungi? So no. My delusional thing is that I would like to escalate from this to this and inspire them through the history of my people and the Circassians and the Indiga and, the warrior concept of operating at a higher standard of honor. And that was our driving force constantly, that we will do this honorably. And so if I can do that, then I will have resuscitated my people through the pen, not from, where's my sword?
Yeah, I carry around a spray that I would use, but I don't have that object there that you're using.
I
But
got
I
that
can
one too.
Yes, okay. Um, So I'm wondering and curious about like what do you consider home? Like how do you describe home? And do you now feel do your parents
No,
your grandfather passed, your other siblings, like the whole experience and you unearthing and getting to the history, do you feel like the US is home now? Like, yeah.
especially now, no. Especially now, no. No, especially now. There may have been a period of time where almost, but no, I feel more alien now more than ever because I don't feel that this is comfortable or safe. You know, home is where you feel safe. And I just don't have that. And I'm not blaming America. I'm blaming just my circumstances. Like, you know, this is my destiny. Like, it just is what it is, you know? So I have to accept that. And that's part of my struggle the rest of my life. Like, I just
Right.
don't, I don't even,
How about your parents? I'm sorry, go ahead. Finish your
yeah,
thought. I'm
I don't
sorry.
even feel like, where would I want to be buried?
Mm,
I've actually talked about this, and that is that I want to be buried in the Black Sea, like just throw my body into the Black Sea where so many of my people drowned on the boats that we were, you know, sent out on. And they were overloaded, they were sabotaged to sink on purpose. And so many of them, you know, did that. On my YouTube channel at Suhein Beck, my trailer shows me underwater with a laptop with papers flying all around.
I've seen it. Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. Beautifully done.
Thank you. That is drenched with symbolism that all those lost voices of my ancestors, I'm catching those words and I want to resurface those words that they drowned in the Black Sea. And I want to resurrect the lost voices that were
Right.
silenced.
What has it been like for your parents who are closer to the history and were older when all of this was happening? You know, the trauma is probably more, you know, in their DNA. You were small, but they were literally like adult where they're absorbing so much of it. Like what's it like for them?
Denial. They never talked about it.
Wow.
They never talked about it. Like, never once did my mother talk about losing her brother. Never once was the discussion of the Circassian, you know, la 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 la. All of this is new. On a tennis court in Anaheim, California, is when my family. Oh, and then I came home that day and I was so frustrated and I was like, Mom, guess what? Da 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 da. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, why don't you and I do an interview talking about what happened to us? And she's like, no, I don't want my sister and my brother to know what we went through. And I was like, why not? She says, I don't want to be pitied. I don't need someone's sympathy I don't need them to know the shame of what we went through. She thinks of it as it was shameful. I think of it now as like badassery. You know, look what we've endured and look how we came through and look what you've done, Mom. And so that video of my mother and it took negotiations of the family, and like at the last minute she backed out again and I had to call her brother in Syria and beg him to, you know, force her to accept it. And he saw the video and he's like, there's nothing in here that is shameful. So she had to hear it from her brother in order for me to have permission to post the video. I fought for that video. So once I did, the whole Circassian community, like other scholars and geographers and whatever, they were like, oh my God, this is incredible. One person, Dr. Adel Abdessalam, apparently he had had a secret conversation with my father, and my father did reveal this stuff to him. He reconfirmed, your father did tell me all of these stories. And I'm like, what? So like, yes, there is another witness that my father did tell long before he passed away 20 years ago. that this was our experience and that is exactly what happened and whatnot. Not that I need the validation from anyone, but like it's comforting to know that even from my father's perspective, he knew that that was not normal, even though he normalized it for us as survival.
Right, right. I wonder if they just wanted you guys to just finally assimilate into the American culture and just be like regular kids. It's you guys have been through so much.
No, no,
No.
he wanted us to maintain both cultures. He was very romantically in love with America, but also who we were, like as our culture and things like that. So he basically gave me free reign to understand that. And in fact, I have a picture of myself, maybe 7 years old, wearing the Circassian dress in front of the Statue of Liberty. It was a hot August day. He was on the ground trying to get the angle of me standing in front with the whole length of the Statue of Liberty in the background. And he kept telling me to put my hand on my heart and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance as people were walking by. And remember, this is at the peak of my speech handicap.
Okay, right.
And my father is forcing me to publicly speak in front of people at on Staten Island. And he was taking that picture, and I just remember that. And he was like, "Put your hand up higher." And I was like, and he's like, "Repeat the Statue of Liberty, repeat the Pledge of Allegiance, repeat the Pledge of Allegiance." So that moment in time proves he wanted us to be bicultural, or like as you say, and I learned this from you the first time, is three cultures, third culture.
Yes.
So yes, he wanted that, and I've been fortunate enough that I was able to maintain both cultures and the Adika Khabza, and that's why I'm able to go on this speaking campaign to introduce the 12 principles of Adika Khabza in modern leadership, because I grew up with that, not the daggers, but the
Right.
respect and respecting the elders, and the self-awareness and the discipline and reading others and the micro expressions. Like there's a lot to it.
Right, right. I gotta check it out myself. There is I don't know if it's government or a private or maybe an NGO called StoryCorps. They would go around and they record the history and stories of just regular everyday American, and it goes into the I want to say Library of Congress, and they store it for people years later to hear what life and people's stories are like today. I did it personally,
Hmm.
and I would recommend it for you to go ahead and tell your story there, so it's actually archived later on, right? So
I would love that. Thank you. Yeah.
yes, I'll go through my email and make sure that's the actual name of the folks, and you can reach out and connect with them. But this has been quite the story, Suhen.
Man, no, don't deceive anyone and let them think that I'm actually American. I'm white and blonde and blue-eyed. Don't let them think I'm American, because then they'll feel like I took the carpet from underneath them, that I'm actually a foreigner, that I was born overseas. God
Right, right.
forbid.
Wow,
I'm
wow,
one of them.
wow.
Does that shock you? Does that really shock you that like it's that deep in terms of like the racism?
Oh my gosh. I'm still unearthing, unraveling. I have so many questions. I don't understand it because I wasn't raised with this for half of my life.
Mm.
And it was only, I think, in the last, I want to say 5 years that I took a class with someone. I read her book, and I started realizing just how broadly people were having similar experiences like me, a more melanated person.
Mm.
I actually, that was not my go-to initially. Like, okay, it's racial or, I would always say, oh, that's just a mean person and just move on with my day. I was here to take
Which
care
is
of business,
beautiful, Simone.
right? But then after a while you realize it was wearing me down. All the microaggressions, all the negative issues that I constantly have to manage, this whole thing called weathering, it started just affecting me. And so I needed to ask the questions, hence the why this podcast exists, because through the conversation, I've learned the language, the words to say, oh, that's what that is. That's what I'm experiencing. That's what that's called. because before I had no idea what I was going through. And there are plenty of people out there who are experiencing things in their experience of the United States, but they don't really understand what's going on. They just know it feels negative in their body and their experience. But
Hmm.
I'm still unraveling this. And the more I listen and I hear, like you as this person who just look completely like somebody who passes as white, and to hear that just because of your name, that somebody would just dig and find a reason to divide you and put you in another group. And so I would, yeah, no, it doesn't really make sense to me, right? But, uh,
But I love that you are elevating this journey of yourself with others, and you're creating a beautiful community. And I hope that you consider me part of your community forever from here on out, because I have this bond with you, that we share, of trying to fit in, of trying to understand do I want to fit in? Do I?
that's an interesting conversation. I won't answer that on here.
Do I? Do I want to fit
Um,
in? Because I'm not seeing, the honor as much as I would like,
right, right.
you know?
I will ever fit in. I don't think I will ever fit in. And so the whole concept of being a third culture person and a bridge person, you're a hybrid of your birth and adopted country. I don't think I will ever fit in because I wasn't born here. I wasn't native to this place. And so as long as I've been, there will always be parts of me that is from another place because I am my mother's daughter. I'm my father's daughter. I came out of my mother's womb in another soil, another ear. And so I was educated there as well up to high school. And so my perspectives are just very global, and my career and experiences have taken me places. And so I don't think I will ever fit in, but it's
Have you
comforting
reconciled
to.
that? Have you accepted that?
I think I'm coming to that right
Good.
now. I have to, because I realize the more stories I hear of the people I interview, I realize that so many of us are going through the pain of it. And
Mhm.
so, but the pain, another part of it that's painful for me is to recognize that I no longer fit in when I go back to Jamaica either, because I've been away for so long and I've become, compared to someone from the island, I'm very American to them,
Right.
but then I'm not as quite American as somebody who was here all their life. So it's that in between. It's very painful, but it's just my life. This is just my journey, and I have to accept it. I have to embrace it, and just live the best way I can. Find my joy and
Mhm.
my light, and make connections with other third culture people around the world.
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying I hope you consider me a sister in humanity with you in this journey of healing, reconciling our assets,
Definitely,
our assets and
definitely.
liabilities, we have so much to offer. Like I said, like I'm not hateable. Like you cannot hate me. I challenge anyone to hate me after they eat some of my food.
Right. Once they sit down and have a conversation and get to know you
Yeah,
and
it's
experience you
impossible
personally, right.
because
I
I
see what you're
will
saying.
I will shower them with like the most hospitable love and kindness and gentleness, and I will find a way to connect with them on
Yes.
their level.
Though I'm not sure, even after doing that, that will erase some of the complexities of this idea of race and the hate that surrounds it. I'm not sure if that will, because there's been plenty of people who've tried that.
Mm.
Break bread with people who you
Hmm.
don't know, who don't know you. And I'm not sure that it takes it, everybody's on their own journey of that experience. I'm discovering it, experiencing it at the hands of other people. And so I can't speak for them, but I would love to kind of get a sense for, I'm learning, but I would love to be like a fly on the wall of somebody's home and just to really hear unadulterated, like, what that world is like and why you would hold on to that position. But
Be
That's
careful what you be
another
careful what you wish
conversation.
for. Yeah, be careful what you wish for.
And that's another conversation for another day. But this has been so beautiful. An hour, and almost 30 minutes. Thank you so much, Suhein. This has been so beautiful. We'll continue to stay connected on
Thank
social
you.
and otherwise. And thank you for sharing your immigrant experience of the Circassian people. And I'm so happy that you've been able to unearth so much
Thank you.
history
It's
and the
been
healing.
cathartic, and I appreciate you for this podcast, and it's so needed. It's so needed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So to all my folks who may be watching, I can't really see who's on because we're in the recording room, but on LinkedIn, on YouTube, thank you so much for joining. We will get this edited and posted on our podcast platform as well as on our other social media platforms. So thank you so much for joining again. Have
Appreciate
a
it.
wonderful afternoon.
Blessings to all.
Yes. Blessings to everybody watching.
We thank our listeners around the world, and we appreciate your continued support as we build our human library. Please remember to give us a 5-star review, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, and circle of influence.